Tyler, good seeing you, man.
Good to see you as well.
So how are we doing today?
Fine.
Doing fine?
Fun stuff.
Yeah?
Yeah, what about you?
You know, life. Tell me about what's happening with you. What's going on in your world?
Just like today? Or
Today's fantastic, man.
okay, so we'll go with that. So, just moving forward on the same stuff. Packed up another box of stuff at the apartment and worked on final paper yesterday, and then class later, and then work tonight. And I didn't get to do like anything fun or really relaxing this weekend again. I got to sleep, which was good, and I went to the grocery store, and I exercised for a little bit, and I worked on papers, but that's just kind of how it is. Like I came home from school on Saturday after I worked Friday and Saturday overnight, and then went to class for 6-7 hours. I came home and I did some stuff around the apartment, and I was going to try and like take a power nap and then hang out with a friend or something, just try and do something relaxing before Sunday, because I knew that I had to work on papers on Sunday. And I fell asleep and woke up at 6:30 or 7 in the morning. So then I just, got ready and worked on papers and stuff, and that was my weekend. That's it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's okay, because like it's not much longer, and this is kind of how it is. But it is a reminder of like why this has not really been sustainable for me. Like with my one day off, I couldn't do anything, and like I barely even made it to the grocery store. Could have done more on my papers, but I got enough time. But yeah.
So do you feel like that with the transition that is coming up, that you're going to know how to take care of yourself?
You mean like on the other end of it?
On the other end of it, yeah.
So that's my hope. My hope is that I can build it up that way, because I'm sort of starting from scratch in a couple ways. That I can build it up that way versus before I started trying to do that, to do the whole self-care thing, but it was like there was already other stuff in the works. There was already my job and school and everything. It wasn't really working for me, and so it was kind of too little too late. There was already this stuff that was self-perpetuating. So I think that if I keep it in mind from the beginning when I'm looking at jobs and trying to re-stabilize and stuff like that when I come back, that hopefully it'll be better. It's not that there's not going to be times that are busy or anything like that, but hopefully it won't get so out of control. And I mean, I've only had one time in my life that all I did was work, and it was, frankly, I was bored. So
Yeah.
I feel like, if I was bored then it'll give me enough time, I think. Like 40, 50 hours a week to me, like, isn't much.
As far as working, you mean?
Yeah, like just working isn't much.
Because you're used to
Yeah.
so much
sort of
more.
round-the-clock type jobs,
Right.
plus school, plus other stuff. So
Yeah.
I think it'll give me enough time, if that's what I end up finding, to sort of balance. And the tricky part will just be being careful about like making sure that I still find a job that respects my weekend and sort of gives me the opportunity to take that time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at it that way from the beginning, then hopefully there will be a better chance that I find something that's kind of a good like lifestyle fit
Right.
for what I'm trying to build. So I guess the only thing is there's sort of a dichotomy about the trip and what comes after, where I'm really excited about it.
Okay.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I'm also terrified. And so I think there's sort of this push-pull of I know that I can't be here doing this anymore. I ignored that for a long time, and I finally had to accept it. Because I didn't really want my life to completely implode like this, but I knew that like it was already there. I was just ignoring it. And, you know, it got there. And so now I'm really excited, but at the same time, I'm leaving the most stable economic situation I've been in, an apartment, some savings that I'm about to, you know, spend all of, everybody that I know, and just sort of like some sort of a clear path,
Right.
with really no idea of what I'm going to do.
And for you, being from, you know, our conversations, what I've drawn from you is you are very mindful of control. You like to know what's coming next.
It's comforting. I think it's also unhealthy for me to always know what's coming next, because that's what got me into the situation. Always wanting to know what's coming next is what led me to accept what seemed like the most realistic, like best option at the time,
Right.
instead of sort of sit in that ambiguity a little bit longer and maybe find something that was a better fit for me,
Right.
which is fine. You know, I don't regret it. I learned some things, but that rush to find something and figure it out is what led me to this in the first place. But, you know, there is a little bit of fear about that, for sure.
Yeah. So, in coming to this decision to kind of change up your life dramatically, where do you feel any sense of what could have been different
Before?
And the reason I ask is because, you know, again, the conversations we've had from the time you were in high school to, you know, this very moment, you've been very driven about what your desires and expectations were in your achievements. And now you've gotten to a point where you're now dismantling that idea and opening yourself up to a whole new kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
And as you said, there's some sense of fear, but also some sense of excitement within that. What do you feel like is going to keep you from retreating back to what you know?
I think so. I think that the fear comes from feeling like it might all end in a big failure, and I'll blow up in my face. And I think that what might help mitigate some of that is trying to do the best that I can to trust that I can figure it out. And there's plenty of evidence of that in the past. I mean, when I moved to Austin, I moved here in a week with $600 with no job and no friends, and figured it out. And that's essentially what I'm doing again in the new place. So, you know, I think it's just trusting myself, and then I can figure something out. But that is difficult.
And I find that very interesting, you know, because you have figured it out. I mean, you were type of individual that even in that fear and that, you know, unsureness, your mind gravitates towards what do I need to do to get to that next step. I think that based upon our conversations is that you still have a long range goal in mind with the thing that you want to achieve, even if you can't necessarily name it.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, like I said, even if you can't necessarily name it, I still think, because I think that's the way you are. You're very, very driven. I think even with this, how you went about, you know, making this decision, and the things you're doing to get ready to prepare yourself for this, still show your drive and your motivation. And my question for you to think about is, what happens if, in other words, what happens if your plans take a path you did not foresee?
Well, I think they will, and I think I'm trying to leave it open to that, but that's a challenge for me. I haven't planned out a ton. You know, I've got a couple destinations, a couple work exchanges, and some hosts and stuff like that. I've got a provisional plan to where I don't end up with nothing or whatever, but it's not planned out day by day. There's no budget. Let's get together as much money as I can, consolidate as much stuff as I can into a backpack or two. You know, have some backup, have a credit card as backup, like have some safety net stuff. And beyond that, it's not really as planned out as I normally would have done with something like this intentionally. So there will be some variation, and I think it's just I'm gonna have to be open to that. I think what's just disorienting for me is there's a lot of things, but one thing, I, like you said, have a good amount of drive, but now I don't know where to put it.
To focus it.
You know, I've decided I'm done with degree programs for right now. Like, I don't want to do school anymore, so it's not going to be continuing educational achievements. So, you know, I don't really know what that looks like, and I haven't picked a field that I want to go back into. So I don't know what that looks like for me.
So let's jump forward. You've done your European trip, learned your experiences, gained all that you've come back to the States, and right now I think the plan is Denver.
Yeah, maybe Aspen first. There's a family friend there that
Okay.
maybe I'll stay with for a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
So you come back and you were presented with the opportunity to get back into a system that is consistent. You know what you're going to be doing. And you're going to get up in the morning at 8 o'clock. You're going to go to this destination for 8 hours. And after 8 hours, you're going to leave that destination and go do whatever it is. But consistently, Monday through Friday, this is going to be
Like a set job type. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you'd be okay with that?
Yeah. I think There's not an issue with that.
Okay.
I don't think I need complete flexibility. I think what I want to avoid is not having flexibility outside of that time to actually live my life.
Right.
So I don't want that and school and everything else to where there's no weekend, there's no break. I want to be able to do my Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends decide I want to drive somewhere and do a day trip and hang out, or decide I want to spend the day with my friends or whatever, and do that. And I want the opportunity to have a day to do nothing, or just read, or Netflix binge, or whatever it is, and not feel guilty about that, or to sleep in and not feel guilty about having slept.
Right.
Like, the way my life is right now, I feel guilty about just meeting my basic needs, spending money on groceries, spending time to go get groceries, sleeping, spending time to sleep. All of that stuff like feels guilty because there's so many other things that I have to do that it feels like it's sort of pulling me apart at times, and there's this opportunity cost to everything that I do because there's so much that has to get done all the time. And I'm just really tired of that.
Yeah.
So I think if that's not there, then sure, Monday through Friday is fine. It gives me clear boundaries of this is the time that I have that's flexible.
Right.
This is the time that I have that's not. That's fine. It doesn't have to be that, but that would be okay.
So I have a question. You're talking about that sense of feeling guilty because you're being pulled in 100 different directions, right? Again, part of that is, having a job. We all, understand that.
Sure.
But the other aspects, school, social life, eating and sleeping, I don't understand that one, but okay, we'll come to those. But those are all things that are driven by you, are they not? Meaning that you chose to go to school. You
sure
can
so
choose.
Is the job.
Yeah.
Everybody chooses the job too.
Yeah.
They're all necessities.
Right.
I mean, you need a job to pay for things. You need a social life. You need to feel like you are achieving a goal. And one way I was doing that for a while was school. Or at least most people need to feel a sense of moving forward.
Right.
School was meeting that for a while. So I mean, all those things were things that were necessary at some point. None of them are really more important than the others, to be honest. But it's just too much pulling in different directions.
Yeah. But I guess where I'm lost and I'm trying to understand is what made you feel guilty about eating, or getting some sleep, or things like you said are necessities, things you need in order to function kind of in the other areas. Why would you feel guilty about doing those things?
I mean, it's better than it used to be, but I guess because a lot of the things that I've engaged in would be happy to take all of my time and all of my resources, and so when things are spent on other ones, it's like, oh, I could spend it on this thing or this thing or this thing, So Sunday was my one day off this week, and I got some things done, but I woke up and realized I'd slept in and I needed to work on papers. I still hadn't seen any friends or done anything relaxing, so I wanted to try and meet that need a little bit. There was no food in the house, so I needed to go to the grocery store, but I'm also trying to not spend very much money before I leave. So I had to go spend money that I didn't really want to spend, and time, but I needed groceries. I needed to pack, but I hadn't really done a lot of that. And of course there was some work stuff that, I wasn't on call this weekend and I didn't go in on Sunday, so I just completely ignored it. But, I did check some emails, and a client got arrested and some stuff happened, but they didn't need me, so I just ignored it. But that's, I woke up just, it's not quite a panic attack, but it's like waking up and just immediately, a to-do list comes back to your head. You've experienced this, and you're just like, wow, it's especially on my day off when I might sleep in a little bit. It's 10 or it's 12, and I need to do this, and this. This is my only day off. They're all going to take several hours. There's no way I can do all of them. So it's like immediate like rush when really I could have used that day to do nothing.
Right.
But it's never an option.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's what I'm talking about is waking up, and I don't feel guilty about sleeping at all. Like, I get that I need that, but it's like, oh, I should have been up at 8 so that I could have exercised, and then I could have gone grocery shopping, and, you know, because now I'm going to be rushing all day long to try and do all of these things so that I can go back to normal.
So you made mention, and you know, obviously now that you're leaving, it's not really a factor, but you were talking about on your day off, you know, you were checking your emails for your job. Is that something you consistently always do?
Like that. There's always like juggling stuff on my day. So it's, you know, working on school papers on a day that I would have rather rested, which, you know, lots of people do, but checking email, sometimes I'm on call all the way through my weekend on a rotating basis, so I'll have to go into the shelter or deal with emergencies, coach people through crisis situations on the phone, stuff like that.
Well, if you're not on call, would you still be
less, but yeah.
But still, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would still like check and maybe like reply to more important emails.
Yeah.
Normally what I do now is like I'll just flag them and then I'll go back to them the next time I'm actually at work. But I'll go through them and sort of read and prioritize and be like, okay, this is something I need to come back to, and I'll flag it and come back to it when I come into work. Stuff like that. I don't spend a huge amount of time on it, but yeah, there's still some attention paid.
So, we've talked some point in the past, and you know, if you want to cover this, we can. If not, that's fine as well. But I want to kind of talk about your idea of yourself in regards to relationships.
In regards to social relationships in general, or dating relationships?
Personal dating relationships.
Like where that stands now?
Not necessarily where that stands now, but that's where we can go there. But just, I mean, I think that, you know, again, as we talked in the past, and I think, you know, this is fresh off the ending of a relationship, and there was a lot of emotion kind of in that was coming out, and I'm kind of wondering where you're at now in regards to, I mean, do you still feel like that you don't want to have a relationship?
Yeah, I still do.
Yeah.
Which I still am glad that I do, because I don't think me wanting it, at least in the way that I did, was healthy or beneficial. I think that it was another like goal-directed behavior in a lot of ways. My family gets married young. That's part of like it socially in general, but also in my family. And obviously, it's perceived as a little bit of a variance from their norm, just that I'm doing same-sex dating mostly. But still, the idea that meeting someone and getting married or whatever is part of building an adult life, and that's what for a while I was working on, and so, you know, that's an aspect of that. And I think that I've realized I don't want to do that in ways that aren't beneficial for me, that don't work for me. That's what a lot of these changes are about. And I think that didn't work for me, and so I mean, I've in the past ended relationships or been broken up with or whatever, and not wanted to date for a little while, or said I didn't want to date, but I knew I didn't really mean it. But I really think I do, and this is the longest time after one, because it hasn't been a huge amount of time, it's been around 2 months or something, that I still, to the exact same degree, if not more, like, don't want that. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it was ever really very beneficial for me. I feel like it was beneficial as a band-aid, as a distraction. I learned some things, sure, but really, I mean, it was never equal. I usually ended up doing more taking care of the other person. It was more about their needs, their wants, like my work, like a lot of things in my life. And I don't really think it was usually, like, didn't end up being about me very often, or even just like reciprocal. And so I also, I hesitate to say this because it feels like a judgment on other people's relationships and what they feel like they feel, which it's not. If someone feels like they have met someone and fallen in love, then I am obviously happy for them, whether I know them or not, or I'm close to them or not. And I want that for the people that I care about, if that's what they want. That being said, I don't really think romantic love exists if I'm going from my experiences, and I think that was something that, like, at one point was a dream of mine that I, from my experiences, have revised and just sort of let go of. And to me, it's been a beneficial thing to let go of, because I think it has not served me to try and go after that. And when I look at the not friendships, because I do believe in love in that context.
Yeah.
Friendships and just human relationships, I believe in it that way. But when I look at the couples that I know and that I've been a part of, the relationships that I've been a part of, I feel like it's more, they last as long as, this sounds crude, but they last as long as each person serves each other's needs. And when those needs are no longer being met by one or both partners, or more if there's more, then it ends. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Even within that context, there's benefits for relationships. There's a sense of emotional safety, physical safety, financial security. You raise the kids together. I mean, there's reasons why people do it still. But it seems to me that in my experience and from what I've seen, it's more about both people, or however many people, getting their needs met, and it ends when they no longer get their needs met. And so I look at the couples that have lasted a long time, like my parents, they still continue to meet each other's needs. It's still what's accepted of them, or what's expected of them societally, to be in a relationship long term. It still allows them to be together to help support their kids, who me and my brother are both young adults, so we still require sometimes some support in one way or another, and they still continue to keep each other from being lonely, and because, like, my dad doesn't have any family, my mom's is a little intrusive, so they meet each other's needs in that way. So they're still doing things for each other, you know. And when I look at, like, my relationship that ended, I saw all the things that were coming up. I knew that he was distancing himself from me. I knew that he probably wasn't ready for a relationship, that this was his first one, and this wasn't going to go well. Second relationship, or first boyfriend. And this wasn't going to end well, probably. Everything that ended up happening, like, I really saw coming and ignored, but I didn't end it, even though I sort of had that urge when I noticed those things, because it was continuing to serve me. It continued to serve as a band-aid to all these other things that I was ignoring with work and school that I knew once I acknowledged would implode my current life, and I would have to start all over. And I'd voiced that to him at one point. And so it continued to meet my need. For him, his need was to explore whether he wanted a relationship or not. He realized he didn't, at least not with me, and not right now.